Welcome to another episode of Distory. My name is Kirk from Walrus Carp, and today we are going overseas to Tokyo to visit their Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which I know that we both came across a few struggles to find some history here, but I definitely found some nuggets of gold amongst the ore. And with me, as always, is your historian minor, Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, did we strike gold tonight?
I feel like I found some stories that I've never heard before, and I don't think anybody else has either, so I'm very excited for that. But this was a struggle. It was because there's just not that much history that's recorded. Unlike the U.S. parks, it's really, really a different thing to study the history for this. So it's going to be an interesting one because it's a really different. A lot of people haven't been to Tokyo, or it's just not something that's talked about very much. So this will be an interesting episode.
Yeah, I've never visited this park, and so everything that I experienced was just through the lens of video footage. But there's not as much. There really is not that many resources about Tokyo. There's endless about Orlando, endless about Anaheim, but yeah,
even Disneyland Paris has a ton. It's just like Tokyo is like a black hole of.
I don't understand why, because you are allowed to film there. I
have a theory.
I
have a theory. So here's my theory about why there isn't as much. And I wrote this down because I was like, this is exactly how I think about Tokyo Disney. So it says, what would it look like if you took Disneyland and Walt Disney World's versions of Big Thunder, put them in a jar, shook it up, and poured it out? That's kind of what the entire park is like, not just Big Thunder. It's very much, they took bits and pieces of both Disneyland and Disney World. There's a few changes, a few things that they've adjusted. Obviously, Disney Sea is its own thing, so that's a whole nother conversation. But just for Tokyo Disneyland, if you walk over there, if you're familiar with Disneyland or Disney World, there's a lot of things that look really familiar over there because it's really kind of an amalgamation of these two parks, and that's how they wanted it.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that was. First of all, Japan had been trying to get a Disney park in Tokyo for a very, very long time. In fact, they had one of the presidents had given that gift that was at the Polynesian for a long time, and then eventually made it over to Epcot and is on display. It almost looks like a cement lantern with the deer on it, which is for prosperity. So they've always been trying to partner and have something make sense. So. And I think it makes sense that, obviously, loving Disney World, there are a lot of front-facing features of worlds and then lands in these parks. And but when I watched Big Thunder in Tokyo, I think it's the best of the best. I think it's better than ours. I do kind of wish the ending was more like yours in Disneyland, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think, so let's just give a very, very brief overview of what happened with Tokyo, just for people who are not familiar with this park at all, just how it came to pass. So those of you who don't know, it was the Oriental Land Company, which is this private entity, came to Disney and said hey, we want to build your park in our country. We want it over here. Name your price. Let's make it happen. And at this point, I think it was Card Walker, did not want anything to do with this. He was like, I don't want to do this. I'm not interested in Tokyo building something over there. We already got stuff going on over here. And so I don't want to do this at all. So he named this outlandish price and also these outlandish rules, you're going to pay for it, but Disney's going to have all of these rights and you're going to have virtually nothing. And we're going to have all of this creative control. And Oriental Land Company came back and said, done, let's do it. Let's sign the documents. And so it's a really interesting park in that Oriental Land Company is the one that owns and manages it, and not Disney proper, but it is kind of also owned in all of its licensing with Disney, and it was created by Imagineers. So a very unique situation for the Oriental Land Company over there. But the thing was that they wanted a park that would be like an American park. They wanted it American in every sense of the way. And they said that the people of Japan, a lot of them maybe can't afford to go out of their own country. I mean, that's also true in America. Some of us can't afford to leave the country. So they wanted a place that it felt like going to another country within their own country. And that's very much what Tokyo Disneyland is. It used to be even more Americanized than it is now. They used to have all their food was American. And then like they realized people couldn't handle the American diet because who can? So, but it's really, really interesting that they have Tokyo as a park. Tokyo Disneyland is almost like going to America within Japan, which is really cool.
Yeah. You know what's funny is they have like all of these crazy little nuances. One, the food is fantastic looking and is very affordably priced. You're like, oh, yes. How is this so cheap? Like there's things for like $2
against the yen. Yeah.
Which is wild, right? So there's that. And then I have a friend who actually works over there. They don't get like cast member passes. They get some ticket discounts, but that's it. So he had to buy his own annual pass over there. And I'm like, that's weird. That's like
weird.
Such a straight. He's like, yeah, if you come over here, I can get you in, but I can't get myself in. I'm like, how does that make sense?
That's crazy. Well,
isn't that crazy?
And a lot of the things they do operationally are also just different there because they have different ways of doing things. So I was reading a lot about like, we talked about Cascade E-stops on Big Thunder in a previous episode and how those coasters work. But I was reading about the loading process for some of the rides there. They just don't have the urgency that we have here, getting people on and off the attractions. So because they don't, maybe it might just be a cultural thing. I'm only so versed in Japanese culture, but like they don't have the urgency to get people on and off. So that in that case, people sit in their ride vehicles for a scene for like multiple rotations of the scene, which kind of like ruins the show in some ways for things because they just don't unload and load like fast like we do in the US. Like here, they're like yelling at you. They're like, get out, get out, get out. Come on, go load. You know, like they're nice about it, but they're also like, move it, you know? They don't do that there, apparently, from what I've read.
That's weird, though, because I've seen videos of how they load people in the Tokyo Metro, and it seems like they very much are there's literally people, like, their job is to stuff you in. So, yeah. You know, if they need... So Dick Nunes obviously runs the Japanese Metro, and then I don't know who's running the Oriental company is having struggles with their capacity.
Yeah, it was just really interesting to read that about it. And, you know, so they have in Big Thunder Mountain, they have basically the process is, you know, they have so many seconds to load. And if you don't, you create this Cascade E-stop in the US, you know, where you have to stop all of the cars so that you can load, so that they end up in these safety zones. They're called block zones, so that the cars don't run into each other, essentially. And they can only have one train loading at a time in the station. Well, there it's interesting because they just like, they don't have the exact same system as we have, where it's different. They don't have that urgency. So sometimes they'll just like send an extra train through because they just didn't get people through fast enough, which is not usually the practice in the US. I guess it's really, really different from what I hear. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to get into that right now, but that does give you a little bit of context of Tokyo. It's just a very, very different culture over there. And they have different rules for, you know, filming and live streaming and all those kinds of things. Like it's just and that's also, I've talked about this on a post before about Splash Mountain, why they redesigned all the Splash Mountain logs to be side by side instead of in a straight line, because they, as a culture, they didn't want to be between somebody's legs, because it was like you'd have to straddle someone almost to like get in the logs for Splash Mountain, and like that was not going to fly in Japanese culture. So they redesigned them to be side by side, and that's why the Magic Kingdom has side by side logs for Splash Mountain. So
California loves to straddle. Dude, what a ridiculous thing. Well, that's true. I'm not going to lie. It always bothers me in some instances of log flumes that don't have like dividers, you know, like it's fine when it was like an old school log flume. And like, if you're just by yourself or if it's you and another person, it's totally fine. But if they're trying to pair you up with other groups, not
it's weird.
De bueno.
It's so weird. Yeah. Anyway, back to Big Thunder in Tokyo. I just thought I would mention a little bit about the difference here for Frontierland. They don't have Frontierland there. They have Westernland because the Japanese word for frontier doesn't translate well. And so frontier for Westernland is kind of like the place to be. There's similar features to Magic Kingdom. It looks more like Magic Kingdom than it does Disneyland if you're looking at Westernland. They've got the Diamond Horseshoe. They have a Country Bear Theater, a Horseshoe Roundup, the Mark Twain, so that's more like Disneyland, Pecos Goofy's Frontier Review, Tom Sawyer Island, Rafts, the Western Shooting Gallery, and then they have there's also a building that has the Elias Hotel, which is Walt's middle name, also his dad's name, but it has 1883 on it for 1983 when Tokyo Disneyland opened. So something to just kind of look for while you're there. And it looks like this. It looks so much like the parks. Here's the Mark Twain, except it has a red paddle wheel on it instead of a brown one like Disneyland. And the Diamond Horseshoe reminds me a lot more of Walt Disney World than it does Disneyland.
Yeah, and then they have the Westernland Shooting Gallery, and in another video I saw it, they have a Hungry Bear.
Oh, yeah. It does look different than Disneyland's, but it's there.
I like the location of Hungry Bear. Like, as somebody who doesn't go to Disneyland very often, that's a nice, kind of secluded, upstairs, you can almost always find yourself a little spot.
I love it, too, because you can watch the boats go by on one side and the train on the other if you go far enough back, which is really fun, especially if you have kids. But I wish the food was just, like, a little bit better, because every time I eat there, I'm, like, disappointed. But the location's great.
Kate doesn't like the food in Disneyland.
And apparently it's like up for being listed as a register of historical places, of the Hungry Bear restaurant in particular, not like Disneyland as a whole. And I was like, that's crazy. So interesting. Anyway, so the railroad in Tokyo Disney does not go all the way around the park like it does in the U.S. parks. It only goes around Westernland and Adventureland. And there's a reason for that. So it's called the Western River Railroad, which might sound like Western River Expedition. And it just has one stop because that is how they circumvented Japan's transportation authority, since a train with only one stop didn't require meeting certain government regulations. So they're like, we're just going to get around those rules. Our train's just going to have one stop.
Well, that also makes sense as to why they would want it to be shorter as well, because otherwise you'd just be stuck on that thing for a lot longer.
Yeah. So they just made it go around a shorter place, which is interesting.
And besides, they don't let you could get off or not get off. Those people will still stay on. You know, you're like, hey, do you want to get off? Nah. Okay. Just go and send it again.
It's more like a ride than it is like the train like we know it, where you can get off at multiple stops.
I don't think of the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World as transportation. I've never thought of that. I don't even think of it as a ride. I don't even know what it is, honestly. After riding the Disneyland one, our train is just like, it's besides the Frontierland to Fantasyland, that section is a ride. It's fun. It's engaging. It's interesting. Everything else, I couldn't call it transportation, because going from Fantasyland to Main Street is not exactly fast, and you have to wait like an hour and a half to get on that station. It's so popular, and there's nothing to see.
Now, you guys need the Grand Canyon diorama, the primeval world. You need like the journey, because it's so weird every time I'm on the Walt Disney World Railroad that I can like see out towards the contemporary, which I know is how they designed it. They designed all of that to be a giant themed area, and that's why they don't have the berm like Disneyland where you can't see out in the same way. But it's just weird to me, because I'm like, and you're in the Disneyland Railroad, you go through that tunnel, so you don't ever see like Anaheim, you know? Thank goodness.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was forward thinking. What did Walt call all the people who were who like encroached around the land?
Leeches.
Yeah, you don't want to see the leeches out there. That's from Walt Disney, not us.
Yeah, Walt Disney's quote. Where do we want to start with Big Thunder here, Kirk? Where would you like to start?
I think we should start at the beginning, and when we're done, we should stop.
Yeah. I do have just some general like postcards and things. I've got one that says Westernland, which is real fun with the Fab Five in it, which is really cute. And what I really like about this one is it has a little mouse hanging from it. It looks like a possum, but it looks like a mouse for some reason. So they got the possum.
It's definitely supposed to be a possum.
Yeah, but it looks like a mouse.
It's a possum mouse.
It's a possum mouse. This one's also like a telephone card that says Big Thunder, Tokyo Disneyland. It has Mickey and Minnie in it. And then I love Scrooge McDuck found a gold nugget. We talked about how all the different Big Thunders have like different water features, right? We talked about, the geysers and the flash flood in Florida, and Disneyland had the earthquake. So in Tokyo, we have the water feature is a tsunami, from what I have heard. Now, I have not seen like an actual document from Imagineering that says that it's a tsunami. So I'm not 100% convinced that it is a tsunami, because there's a severe lack of water on most of this ride. So
yeah, I mean, there's only 2 instances of water, and both of them are reflected in I guess you could say Walt Disney World and Disneyland rides, because there's elements of both in the water features that they use. So
yeah,
I would not agree with that, because there's like phosphorus pools, and
it's weird.
Yeah,
it's definitely like placed in America. So a tsunami would happen on the Pacific coast, but we're not on like the coast in this. So
yeah. I'm leaning towards still another flash flood, because there is a building submerged, which would make more sense. But again, I don't know.
Maybe that was just somebody threw out there like, oh, it must be tsunami because it's in Japan, and like it just kind of stuck. That's entirely possible.
Kate is 1,000% well researched, but this came directly from Twitter user named it was a tsunami in Japan.
The only thing I can find is this is like on like fan blogs and stuff, and I was like, that's never a good resource,
No, they're terrible.
This is designed to look like Monument Valley, like all the other versions except for Disneyland. So that really nothing has changed there. The name of it though is different, because they dropped the word railroad from this version, so it's just Big Thunder Mountain. It's not Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. So that's very different than all the other ones.
It was weird because they didn't actually build trains on this one either. So people just walk around the mountain. It's not really much of a ride. It's more of just a walkthrough experience. So they should really build a train. There is a train.
That would be sad.
It would be. This version's better than both of our versions, though. I'm going to throw that out there.
It's not as good as Disneyland Paris. Wait till you get there, my friend.
Okay, well, we haven't. All right, let's count our Tokyo before it hatches,
It's true. So this version opened July 4th, 1987, which was 4 years after the park opened in 1983. So it was really interesting that they were even though they had a lot of money, they were very fiscally responsible when they did this park. So they recouped all of their costs, or most of their costs, before they built all their phase 2 plans for the park. And Big Thunder Mountain was part of the phase 2 plan for that. So it was one of the last things built in Westernland. So it's kind of weird to think about that park opened without Big Thunder, but there's a lot of the big attractions that opened without, because they just wanted to start getting profit and then putting that towards building it more, which is smart.
Well, the other thing too is almost every park starts like that. This one had the benefit of a head start, meaning people knew about Disneyland and Walt Disney World had just begun. So it was this ability to use 2 markers of success that would allow people to want to visit this, even if it didn't have every single e-ticket from the previous 2 parks.
Yeah. Yep. So the other thing I have is a note about who built this one. This was not Tony Baxter who was there building it, putting it together, planning it. Even though he was obviously the like kind of overarching creator of things, he wasn't in Tokyo doing this. So it was assigned to Skip Lang, who he worked from 1977 to 1986 in the U.S. parks. He worked as a field art director on Big Thunder Mountain, which we talked about in previous episodes. He's on that like Fusers list and stuff. He was the art director, field art director. And then just a couple of other things that he's done. He was the production designer for Journey into Imagination, and The Living Seas in Epcot. He was also the show director for Indiana Jones Adventure in Disneyland in 1995 later. But in 1986, he was named show producer for Big Thunder Mountain in Tokyo Disneyland. So I have a little bit of a note here because the other person that mainly worked on this project was Pat Burke, which we also talked about in previous episodes. He was the set designer for the US versions. But there's a story about how Skip Lang actually got on this project, which I think is funny. So I have a picture of him here. This is him working on one of the US parks, and it's very 1970s, early 80s vibes here. But he said,
I wish I had a good mustache because I'd.
I know, right?
I need some trees and a tiny train. And a middle part.
Yeah. So he says, Skip accidentally hurt his hand on the bandsaw and needed help with the Walt Disney World 1-inch scale model. I noticed while doing the model that the smaller show model didn't have a lot of mining-related theming. This is how Pat Burke got in there, sorry. I noticed that it didn't have a lot of mining-related theming, so having grown up with that element, I asked concept designer Tony Baxter if I could do some research on my lunch breaks and come up with some. The rest is history after building all four with Tony and Skip. So that is how Pat Burke ended up on the project. Skip Lang actually got injured, and he was like, I need help with this model. So this is the both of them here. So Skip Lang...
Career advice, kids. If you need to get on a job... Make sure your boss gets hurt on a bandsaw.
So Skip Lang is this one here. And then over here sitting kind of like up on top of the model. That is Pat Burke, who we've already chatted about. So that, I always thought it was funny. There's so many great interviews out there with Pat Burke, and he worked on all four of these. So it's really fun to read those. And if you need a refresher about which one he is, this is the guy we're talking about here. So he actually had a really interesting story. I'm going to take us on a very small rabbit trail real quick. Pat Burke had some stories about the times that he met Michael Jackson while working on Big Thunder. So bear with me for a moment. He said, I actually met Michael twice at Disney. The first was on Tokyo Disneyland Big Thunder. The second time I saw Michael Jackson and his kids was 2 a.m. on a 1994 on 1994 at Disneyland Paris as we were working on the fort expansion and they reopened the park for him that morning after closing. We were trying to hang the antlers over the gate opening when the hydraulics on the forklift broke and got red fluid all over the new paving. Operations department was going crazy to clean it up and get the forklift out before opening that morning, and the antlers went up and Michael approved. He said, I remember I got a memo from Marty Sklar asking why there were so many antlers on the new fort roofs. I told him that was a sign of a great hunter and all was fine. The other time he met Michael was when I was at, I think it says Tajunga? I don't know how to pronounce that. Outside working on all the Tokyo Disneyland Big Thunder sets and mining artifacts. Michael's limo drove up as they were filming Captain EO next door. He got out and came over looking through the chain link fence. He asked me where all these great things were going, like all the mining equipment. I told him the third Big Thunder for Tokyo. He said he wished he had some for his property. That was before Neverland Ranch, of course. I told him I would love to see the filming of the dance scene in EO, but found out later that was the last day and I still had work to get out. So he didn't go see the filming of Captain EO because he had to go get some work done. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. That's why, well, hey, you never know who you run into.
That led me to look up what Neverland Ranch looks like because it's been a hot second. So it's a little recap. It looks a lot like the front of Disneyland, that building. So anyway, the only other things I have before we kind of like jump in is I have a list. This is just kind of random. I have a list of like props and set dressing notes just to see what they look like. And half of it I can't really understand. It's half of it's in Japanese, the other half is in English. So this is kind of how they worked at Imagineering. Everything had to be in 2 languages for this project, which is really interesting. And then they just list all the props on the side.
Most things in this park too are in both English, it's strange that English is usually in the primary position and Japanese is in the secondary. And I'm not sure.
Because they wanted it to make you feel like you're going to America. That was done very intentionally because they wanted it to feel like you're going to America when you went into the park. And the only other thing I have is a little note. I feel like, have we talked about Pat's crane before? His little crane that he made? I feel like we've mentioned it.
No.
In every version of Big Thunder, Pat Burke designed this little tiny crane that has little gears on it. And this is the model.
We definitely did not talk about this.
Okay. So this is in every version of Big Thunder. So it's in Disneyland in the queue, and it's where his crate was hanging from. Do you remember when we saw the Burke crate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it used to have his crate hanging from it. Now it's just like chilling. But and this is on the back side of Big Thunder in the Walt Disney World version. And it also used to have his crate hanging from it and doesn't anymore, but it's still there. So this is also, we can keep a lookout for this as we go through the attraction because it's also in Tokyo Disneyland as well. That is pretty much the notes that I have for that, except for now we can go into the queue. But I did find something that I did send to you, Kirk, which was this. I didn't find very many things, but I did find the staging areas, and it lists the scene number, and then it lists like all the things that they're going to make, and then it says the days that they have to complete the project. So this gives us a little bit of concept of the different scenes and what's in them, but I don't know about you, Kirk, but I haven't matched up what goes with what. So
I kind of like made my own. I made my own scene names because like they mirror like Disneyland's.
Yeah.
I feel more than anything else.
Well, there's a couple different pieces that we haven't seen before. There's a couple that are very, very familiar that we won't have to get into because they are all stuff we've already covered. But there's a couple things that I'd never seen before and never heard. So there's a few things on there. But it can be a little bit of a scavenger hunt as we go through. We can keep an eye out for some of these things. So with that, do you want to take us into the queue? Shall we head on in?
Yeah. Right as you're like heading into the queue, you will notice that there is a threshing machine or a portable engine or a traction engine, depending on how you use this thing. So using it as a steam engine, you could have this power various types of machinery, or you could actually change the drivetrain, which they figured out and converted portable engines so that you could drive them on their own power roughly in 1859. So remember, we're in the mid 1800s on all of these Big Thunders, so that our time period is correct. And the first ones started out from the Robbie and Co. So in like 1849, this was an engineering company based out of Lincolnshire, England. And they were used all over the United States, particularly for mining. And they also use some of their parts for like aircraft equipment as well. But let me show you. I have like a bunch of like really old photos, and then I can show you.
It's interesting that I was kind of leaning towards it being a steam tractor. So it's interesting that you went a different.
Okay, ready? So it's the same thing. Okay. It's the same exact thing. So like they started off as being portable steam engines that could be utilized however, but then they could turn them into traction engines, which would allow them to have them power multiple things as well as physically pull as a tractor. So like you can see that, this guy is on the old tractor situation. But yeah, I mean, most of these, like this is the style that we're looking at. I'm pretty sure this is like spot on. This is a Robbie and Co. And they actually have like a bunch of different like vintage tractor meetings and meetups where people restore these old steam engines.
This is in Oregon. This is the Great Oregon Steam Up.
That was Kate's first car. That's her with her dad learning to steer. Look at him go.
I mean,
for those that are listening, we're literally watching imagine a giant steam metal cylinder being powered, dragging just two people.
Well, it's interesting because the information I have on a steam tractor was that it was patented in 1890 by a California grain farmer, an inventor named Daniel Best. And the steam tractor was originally designed to replace teams of draft horses in the fields, but soon became popular in the timber and mining industries as a way of transporting heavy loads. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, again, it's because they originally started out as these traction engines and portable engines, and then ended up going into tractors. And look at this guy on that. It looks like Jules Verne style, like what is that thing? The road steamer for Woolwich Arsenal.
really interesting. I have to tell you, Kirk, I feel like by the end of this series, we could all just go gold mining. We have enough information.
I'm not gonna lie, I know too much. You know what I mean? I just know too much. Like, it's really sad when you go through the queue and you're like, oh, that's this. Oh, that's this. Oh, that's this. Oh, they have a stamp mill. Okay, cool.
It's a stamp mill,
Like,
and there's an iron donkey, and look it over there.
It's very pathetic. It's like no human should know this stuff, but here we are, you know.
Well, the next thing that I have, if we're done talking tractors and steam engines, I have the tanker that's next. Did you see?
Oh yeah, the tanker. Yeah,
the bandy tanker. It's like this green, really interesting, like green. And it's a wagon. I didn't realize that till I saw a different angle of it. It's actually a wagon. So it has a seat.
Oh, it is a wagon.
So I looked into this, and I think from the set list, this is probably the water boiler / water tanker / air steam injector. It's like it has like a multiple name, and that's what I think this is. But I was looking up the history of water tankers. This is my life now. And it's interesting because it looks like the one that is at the end, similar to this, but it has if you've ever heard of borax, if you've had children that make slime, you're very familiar with borax.
The activator.
Yeah, it's what they call the 20 mule team borax, and they call that because it was, this borax was mined. In Harmony, borax works in the Mojave Desert, and then they dragged it across Death Valley, and while they did that, they would advertise on the side of it, and they would put what borax was good for. So as it rolled through town with these 20 mules, you would get a nice long advertisement for borax for your household. But there was a water wagon at the very end of it that was for the mules to keep them watered as they went through Death Valley. So yeah, it's good for hard water too.
Watered? What do you pour it on their backs, Kate?
No, you keep horses watered. You keep them.
Is that what you say?
That's
Watered,
what you
like
say.
they're plants?
Yeah, you keep your
gosh.
horses watered. Isn't that a thing? I thought it was a thing. But anyway, so 20 mule team borax is literally, and I went deep down the history of the 20 mule team borax, which we don't need to go into, but I feel like I know more about borax than I ever would have known. And it did eventually become a symbol of the American West, the pioneering miners, and the quest for material wealth, which makes sense then why a water tanker would be in the queue of Big Thunder.
Yeah.
See, people are saying I'm right. See? You water
I don't know.
horse.
I don't have horses. I didn't grow up I grew up. My mom always loved horses, so I learned how to ride a horse at an early age.
You
but
just never
we
watered
didn't
them.
own them. We didn't board them. We didn't water them. I would pet them and ride them. That's about it. And feed them and walk them.
Carry your horse. Very
I
important.
didn't water them enough, I guess.
There are 2 crates that are in front of that too. I don't know if you, at the top one I had a really hard time reading. I don't know if you caught it.
It says Big Thunder Mountain ore samples, ORE samples.
Ore samples.
And then the bottom one says Champion Ironworks. And this goes back to, we talked about this a while ago because this gets mentioned before. The Champion Ironworks, which was from the 1876. And this was over in Kenton, Ohio. And then eventually they moved over to Pennsylvania. But yeah, I mean, these guys were doing lots of smelting and all that good stuff and making lots of iron goods. But the time period matches, even though they called themselves the Champion Iron Company, and this was called the Champion Iron Works.
Right. They changed their name. So they started out in December of 1875, and they changed their name to the Champion Iron Works in 1899 because they wanted to do other things besides make fences. So they made fences. In the beginning, they're like, "Hey,
yeah, I guess
we want to do
Champion
something
Iron
else."
Fence Company. They're like, "Hey, what else do you want to do?" I don't know, just anything but fences.
Just no more fences, please.
Yeah, they weren't sure if they were what they should change their name to. They went with Champion Iron Company though, but they were kind of on the fence about it.
Okay, so next up we have what the
No,
water wheel.
no,
What?
don't you do that to me. Don't you dare. How dare you try to just leave? So do you? No. No. The answer is no. We're not leaving this water tanker.
Wow. Okay.
I'm in, dude.
What do you got? What do you got for the water tanker? I'm ready.
So, all right. Originally, so this is kind of interesting because
there. Whew.
Yeah, because I love this. The water tanker is what's up. So first, I was curious as to if this was like oxidation or if they actually painted this water tanker, and why did they pick that specific color? And yes, I came to the same conclusion as you, as it being a water tanker, because you can see from other 1800s water tanker, I'm pretty sure I found the exact same one. That is dang close. The only difference on this one is it doesn't use banding to put the seat. This one used the seat in the front, so it wasn't as elongated, but it had the same potable style top on towards the aft, which I didn't find in any of the other wagons that I was looking at.
This is our life now.
Going back to this green color, it made me try to figure out, well, where would be, and I started off with like 1800s tankers where my searches started. And that brought me to the standard oil companies, tankers. And isn't that like the same green?
It is. Yeah.
I don't know if they took inspiration from that green color from that. Obviously, this one holds petroleum and oil, and it was used for oil fields, but similar style. It was a wagon. Also, this is where the term that we get for oil tankers comes from as well, is from these older wagon-style tankers.
Okay, but go back to that other picture for a second.
Let's do it, dude.
Red one, because do those colors not yet remind you of the trains on Big Thunder?
Yeah. Everything about this screams Big Thunder.
I'm just like, because I was trying to figure out remember how I was trying to figure out where they got the colors from? And I wonder, I don't know if these are the original ones. It's hard to say, these have been restored and whatnot. But I wonder if it was from something like this, where it's red and green and almost yellow.
Yeah, just looking at the color scheme.
Colors.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting. Okay.
You'll have to go down that color rabbit hole.
Again.
But hang on. Before we go, we can't go past this. I need to go backwards.
Okay.
All right. Because we glossed over some horticulture.
Oh, okay. And it's important because it's different there in Japan than it is.
It is very different. I actually had to look up multiple types of cacti because it's very different. Because you would think, like, in terms of climate, what could grow, what makes sense. This is kind of interesting because I never would have expected the certain types of cactus that they selected. This just stood out to me because I haven't seen a cacti that kind of looked like that, where it had kind of like bulbous little pieces, but then channeling as well.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find it just by looking up cacti pictures. So I went like AI on this thing and took a screen grab and had it find me cactuses that were similar. And that led me to, oh no, where is it? Ceres hildumanius.
Okay.
Or the queen of the night cactus. Hang on. Where is it?
Ooh, interesting.
A picture.
Maybe it's something that grows in cooler climates, maybe, because it's definitely cooler there than in the American Southwest.
Yes, that's
what
true.
I would guess.
Well, this one, interestingly enough, hang on. There we go. Where you could find this normally is mostly in Europe, and then some in India, and a lot in Brazil and South America. So this is
not a lot in Japan.
Yeah. It's but it's, I don't know. I thought it was cool to find the exact cactus because they're very strange and bulbous and different than other cacti. So
interesting.
Yeah, there you go. But if you ever need to identify a plant and you have a picture on the internet, go to plantnet.org and you can upload anything. I actually, in my travels, I use an app. It's called Seek by Naturalist. It's like a National Geographic thing. It's really, really good for identifying stuff like when you're out in the field, you just use your camera. But yeah, if you ever need to know and identify and you're on a computer, you can look up some cacti.
In case you're standing in the Tokyo queue, want to know what kind of cacti you're looking at.
Dude,
Smart.
if you use Seek and figure it out. I tried to seek this picture because I'm an idiot, and I'm like, I wonder if it can tell. It needs it to be 3D. It can't be 2D.
All right. Are you ready to move on, or you have more? Because I don't want to rush you, especially after last time.
Can't believe you did that to me, dude. All I wanted to do.
I'm so sorry.
All I wanted to do was to show my water tanker, and you were like, "Well, I covered it, so let's go further."
I'm sorry.
He can't.
I
He
will
can't
never do that
possibly
again.
have. He can't possibly have anything on the water tanker.
Okay, but do you have what bee bandy is? Because I looked that up. And I
No,
couldn't figure it out.
I looked it up forever, and I could not find a single thing about bee bandy.
No, total dead end for me. I looked everywhere. I looked up entomology. I looked up all the things. I found nothing.
Yeah, I failed miserably on the bandy line.
The only thing I can figure out is it's either somebody. It's not historical, like a historical figure, because we would have found it. And so it could be somebody from Imagineering. It could be some sort of reference to something.
I tried going down that way. Then I tried to say it really fast to figure out if it was like a pun that I just wasn't understanding. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%.
I was like, there's something here that I'm missing. And
I went to like bandy about. I was like, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. So I was like, I got nothing. I don't know. All right. Well, since you don't have anything else, shall we move on to the, it's like a water wheel under a sluice box. There's like a whole little collection of things here. And the water wheel is interesting because it's very much like, kind of like those ore buckets that we saw that would kind of go in a loop. And it's interesting that if you remember how Tony Baxter said he got the inspiration for that one that's in the Disneyland queue from the treehouse in the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse, which later became the Tarzan treehouse, now the Adventureland treehouse, but it looks a lot like that kind of system. So to me, it's like they just kind of kept on with that same theme and just added that in there. But it's interesting because I did see some things in mining practices that look like this, but it doesn't carry water. So that was really interesting that they're having it pour like that. It seems more just decorative. Instead, all the things that I found for mining practices, it was actually carrying ore material and then like dumping it into something. So, you found something? You look pleased.
Oh. Are we talking about the Pelton water wheels? Yes, I found exactly what these things are, which is pretty cool. Interestingly enough, they're using it wrong. Let me explain.
Well, that's what I said. That's why I said they're using it wrong. I said that.
Not the way you're thinking.
Okay. I'm ready. School me, Kirk. I'm ready.
Okay. But here's what's interesting about these little buckets is it was incredibly inefficient to use top-fed paddle water wheels typically used in flour mills because they were too slow, inefficient for the purpose of much more powerful, needing crushing for all of the mills that, like we're smashing gold ore and running drills and pumping air into mines. We need a lot more efficiency. So top-fed water wheels would have been really, really slow and inefficient, and they wouldn't have done that. So to increase the efficiency, they actually have the spring go through a bottom water nozzle jet. So, of course, this has to be like the smallest picture.
It's like postage stamp size.
No, dude, look at it. That's the old controls zoom in. So you'll actually down here, they would have a flow valve that they would open up to wherever the spring was or their creek or estuary, whatever they were diverting into this. And it would power this and almost like, because it would concentrate such a large swath of water, it would turn this into a jet and it would actually push the Pelton wheel around. So these became turbines and were like little grooved buckets. But they originally started out being just one smooth bucket top. So I'll actually show you. I have a video of a Pelton water wheel. When this guy opens it up, you'll see how fast this thing starts turning. So right now he's cranking underneath, and this is the this is like a dual chamber one, but you can see the water is like spurting out everywhere. You just get it started by moving it a little bit, and then this thing just starts cranking because it's under pressure. And he said he recognized the fact that like when you used hoses and you would divert the stream of hoses, he was watching his like neighbor, like I guess water his cows.
That's how you say it.
And he noticed that there was a diffusion. So there was a lot of inefficiency with even the bucket because the water would hit the dead center of the little bucket on this wheel, and it would create like a backsplash effect. So instead, he noticed when the cow was being watered and it hit its nose, it would divert it into two chambers. So instead of being against that, he like basically created a groove in the wheel itself. Now, the one that's in Tokyo Disneyland is an earlier model of a Pelton wheel because it does not have the grooves in the buckets or the divider, which would allow it to be even more efficient and less use of water. But yeah, they were using this for grinding, and it actually, I think they use it for the machine. It's either for the engine that's right behind it, like the gears that are attached to it, or they could also attach it to the machine that is to the right in the queue. I think.
They're using this incorrectly, though. I don't think in any case this would be the end of a sluice box. I don't think that's correct.
No, because first of all, a sluice box is, remember, we're trying to find gold ore. Why would you dump it into a bucket and then just into a trough? Like, it's pointless, right?
Right.
So obviously this is a visual effect of, one, a sluice brings water, two, old mills have water from the top. So it like has all these visuals, but all of this is incorrect. The sluice would never go into a bucket like this and power it. One, it's inefficient. And two, the wheel would be, directly to a spring. It wouldn't go to a sluice box. It just wouldn't work.
Oh, really interesting that,
this is wrong.
For all of the information and for how Pat Burke was so highly detailed about this equipment, it's actually a little shocking that it's wrong. So
yeah,
because he has like sketches and whatnot of how all of this stuff should be set up.
I did find a now this is more of your traditional. I did find like a small channeling of water into an old fashioned water wheel, like again, like you would see, and this was in a mine, but they just didn't work really well. So nobody would really use these. That's why they were using like these guys instead. And this one, you can see the channeling in the center. It's like a little groove, like in the right over here. It's like,
okay.
It like dips in.
I will say that this is different than what I found in terms of mining equipment. So that's really interesting. I have like seen this kind of wheel in other places, but the one that I found was more like the belts that had the cups attached to them, and that was actually moving ore.
Your belt one though was belts, and they were more like vertical, right? Like I was thinking about the elongation of them and the fact that they're more of like a conveyor belt system where this is a direct wheel. I agree with you that the parallels are there. It mirrors the water movement that's in Disneyland Anaheim. However, this legitimately was a mining piece of equipment, this one. Yeah. And they used them, and the water was always pushed into the bottom. Even if you look at this thing, there's no water on the top. It's all underneath. Yeah. So it's just kind of, I don't know. When I found it, I searched for quite a bit to try to see. Whoop, hang on. I got to solve a puzzle to keep TikTok open. To make you do that stuff. So I don't know. I just was really excited to actually find what the heck it actually was versus, what we thought it was. But
yeah. I have a comment that says, unless they filter the ore out as the water flows through a screen. Yes, but it doesn't seem like that's what this was.
Does.
Right. That's especially with miner's moss and all those things. And so like usually what comes out of the end of a sluice is just like junk. You don't throw it into a water wheel to propel something else. At least that's my basic understanding of mining. After doing this series for too many episodes.
Because that's a Pelton wheel and it requires more speed to be effective, I think it would not make sense. However, if somebody were to use sluice runoff water to power the mills, like a flour making mill that was attached to the mining company because, obviously making bread for all the people that are working there. That could be a efficient use of, just like when there's like nuclear energy that gets recaptured, like any of that overflow water that's superheated and gets recaptured. That would be a pretty intelligent way to use a sluice box, but you would have to use it with a more traditional water wheel, not one of these.
Yeah. Well, we certainly
if anything, I now feel like I could come up with how to make a mill.
Yeah. See? Just minus the alligators.
Life skills.
So be careful where you live.
Gators are swamp puppies. They're nice. They're nice. They don't want to do anything to you. I got to see a river otter and it was adorable, so worth it.
I do like otters.
If river otters can swim in there, then we can swim in there.
We have sea otters here. They're adorable. Shall we move on to I guess it's like I didn't have a better name for it. A gold processing funnel, I guess, is kind of near that water wheel. Should we go there?
Do you mean the hydraulic cone crusher?
Is that what you found it? Let's look. So
yeah, pretty much.
Like the set list, I found things. I thought I found something for a tram bucket, which I still haven't been able to find. I found like all this stuff that I didn't find that. So please
I'm pretty sure.
Us.
So I mean, there's multiple names for it, and obviously I didn't find the exact specific one, but it's an ultra fine grinding mill. So this is a conical mill. Hang on, let me pull it up so that you guys can actually see what we're talking about.
I had like an overhead shot.
Right. Hang on, I got a front view one because these guys walk right up against it and they actually look at it for like half a second. So yeah, there's this is a conical fine grinding mill, which again, I said its location right next to a particular engine in the back. There is an extra conveyor space here, so it's totally plausible that they could run a belt and maybe run this in a powered fashion rather than through, just because there is like a hand crank on the top as well. And there is a ladder, so clearly somebody's hauling up bits of ore or ensuring that there isn't any kind of like obstructions in the grinding process.
Yeah.
But I found multiple ones of these if we want to buy any. Do you want to buy one? I found an HGM Series 3-ring ultra fine grinding mill. They're cheap, dude. I'll buy you one. Like, come on. Is that what we need? These were for, you could get it for iron, for golds, for whatever. I mean, it's all the same. And then these are like the high performance crazy ones for iron ore, steel, slag, river stone, granite, basalt, quartz, and other diamonds.
You call them basalt? Basalt?
How do you say it? Basalt.
Like, what?
I was basalted. Wait, hang on. In all seriousness, what is basalt? What is that?
I don't know. I just know how to pronounce it.
Oh God. This is welcome to Kirk Can't Say Anything.
Is it igneous?
Basalts
igneous
are
rock?
common aphanitic, igneous, extrusive volcanic rocks.
Igneous. Yay. I guess igneous.
Igneous. Oh God. They're composed of minute grains of Plaglio class feldspar. I hate this. I hate all of this. I would never be a good geologist because I'm an idiot. This is the worst.
You're not an idiot because you can't pronounce stuff, but it is funny to watch.
I just never heard it before. Oh, it's bad, dude. Dude, there's all this stuff. This is not English. Listen to this. Listen to this for a second. The ferromagnesian minerals are mainly amphibial and rarely biotite.
The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plains.
This is ridiculous. Nobody knows how to say these words. This is ridiculous. The rapidly cooling basaltic lava equivalent of the Gabbro neorite magma. Okay. Just stop.
Stop now.
Just stop, dude. Stop being, listen, you want to justify.
Out there knows what that means. Just say.
You want to justify your paycheck, justify it however you want. Add some more multisyllabic words to make me feel bummed.
Maybe that wasn't written for you. Just saying. It's not layman's terms.
Yeah, I'm as layman as a person, and this is like,
oh,
this is terrible.
I feel bad.
Don't feel bad. It's hard to read.
Okay.
It's really hard to read, Kate. I don't know what they're saying. Feldspar, yes. Yeah, I can't.
Why are we talking about basalt? Is that what they process through this? What did you call it?
I was basalted on this podcast. I told you. I lava nothing about this. This podcast does not rock.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. Do we have anything else about this particular piece, or should we move on?
You don't want to add anything to this?
I don't, because I thought it was a tram bucket, because that's what I have things for. Because I have this, like, first I have
the tram
this
bucket
one.
look like?
I don't know. So, okay, this is from the blueprint.
That's a robot, Kate. You're looking at a robot holding a briefcase. That's a steel man going to work who's upset. Like, doesn't it look like a steel man going to work? He's like, oh my gosh, I have to work on this machine again. Look, he's even got like a monocle on.
That's funny. So I thought maybe it could be that, but then it doesn't have the right shape. And so then I was like, okay, well, I have all these other like pictures of random stuff that he put in this thing. And I was like, maybe it's this one. I'm like, Lordy, look at all the different words. He was really detailed.
That could be it. Yeah, I mean, and it has stuff above it, you know?
So this says, the one above it is a shiv wheel, is what he calls it. But this says tram bucket. What is that? It says tram bucket tower. See, it's like taller.
Hang on. So that looks like a cabling system. So like, hang on. Did you look up tram buckets?
I did look up tram buckets.
I mean, they look pretty distinct that they're like on a cabling system.
They don't look anything like this. So why does it say tram bucket tower? I mean, look at the one next to it. I'm like, that doesn't look like it either. But these are the blueprints that they used. See, this Oriental Land Company. Elliot says, it would make my day if Distory could produce some branded monocles, please.
We'll work on it. They only can be steampunk and worn by robots, though.
Yes.
So
yes.
Anyway, it looked like that was a robot. I'm just saying. I don't know what you showed me, but that was a robot.
Yeah. So I don't know, because I did look up the tram buckets and I have pictures of them, and I was like, that doesn't look like right.
There's no cabling system. There's no cabling system above this.
Like this,
it can't be that.
This guy is like in the tram bucket.
Actually, that's his name is Tram, so that's his bucket. It's a very inefficient system. Actually, that's how we got tram cars. He was the first one. He was in a Model T, and they were like, "Oh man, watch the tram car," and there he is. That's what happened.
Yeah. So to me, it doesn't look like tram buckets, but that's what it says on the blueprints, and so I'm just terribly confused. That's where that's at.
Yeah, I mean, there's some hoist and pulley systems, but there's nothing over top of this that would make me convinced that this has multiple buckets going above it. I just don't see it. I mean, it could make sense that this was below where a tram bucket would dump, and then it would crush from above. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you would pour the ore in, but there's no system after that. So this is like just basically, this is the rudimentary version, because a guy would have to carry all the material up a ladder.
Yeah. That sounds like a job I don't want.
No, it'd be terrible.
So, yeah, I don't think it's a tram bucket. That was the best guess I had. I was like, it doesn't even look like that.
No, I think it's like some sort of conical crusher grinder sorts. It's a giant pepper mill with very large peppercorns.
Okay, so where should we go from here? I have like a note that we go through a rock tunnel, which is kind of where you can kind of see a preview of the train going by next to you. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, the right side is where we start to see a stamp mill, which looks almost identical to the one in Walt Disney World. But I wasn't able to see what it says on it. Did you see? Does it say Joshua Hendy Ironworks on it?
So, all right. Great question. Nobody can see that. It's too far away and nobody cares. I hate to be that guy, but I mean,
nobody cares. But I did find a video of how a stamp mill works, which is really
it's pretty
cool.
I mean, that thing looks identical to the ones that we've seen, so I can't imagine that it's not the same.
Okay, I have to show you what a stamp mill looks like while it's like processing, which is really
while it's
cool.
stamping.
So like the little things,
Oh, get out of there, dude!
Yeah, no, he's like
doing?
that's where he poured the material is into the bottom, and so you see the little wheels spin and they pick up those like circular conical pieces and then they drop them down, and that's what like pounds the material in the bottom. It looks like they use water too, so water's part of the process as well.
This is also what it looks like when I have a migraine. That's the inside of my head.
Anyway, it was kind of fun to see an actual stamp mill from that period working and processing material. So anyway,
I think it's cool. I like stamp mills.
I
mean, most people probably think that's like an oven. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, how do they know? How do they know what that is? You know, it's not obvious.
At some point, I have a thing that says a foos engine on my list, and I haven't run into it anywhere. But it did.
They're usually at the end of the foosball tables, but I don't know if they have one of those here. I don't think they were invented in the 1800s. A foos engine.
So it looks like this. So as we're going through, if we see anything that looks like this was manufactured in Springfield, Ohio, which claimed to be the largest manufacturer of gas engines in the world by 1900, and then it was eventually bought out by Fulton Iron Works in St. Louis in 1927. So, but I feel like this is somewhere in this queue and or somewhere in this attraction, but it is listed on the scenes that were on that little sheet that I showed you guys from Pat Burke.
There is an engine on the right-hand side when you're coming up on this section. There's like, one's a tractor for sure, because you can see a seat on it. So I know that's not it right there, because you can actually see the seat. And then to the left, there's another engine, but we would be able to see them on the ride. So
yeah, I feel like it says, let's see, where is it? The foos engine. It says load unload stamp mill / foos engine. So that's why I put it in this area. So it must be.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think it's down here on the left, right before we get to the station. So when we cover, get excited for next week. Here's our teaser. Get excited for next week's Distory when we look at the unload section's foos engine.
Yeah, I am excited.
Tune in. That's what we call a teaser, kids. That's what really brings them in. That's how we get our listeners.
Yeah, good times here on Distory.
That's cool. I didn't find the foos engine, so I'm excited to actually figure it out.
All right. So from here, I know that next to the stamp mill, we see a couple of crates. There's one that says Big Thunder Mountain Railroad Company, Sun Valley Ironworks, missing equipment. I looked up Sun Valley because I was trying to figure out what's that referring to. There's a whole bunch of Sun Valleys. There's one in Denver. There's one in Los Angeles. There's one in Idaho. And also, there's kind of an overarching theme in Tokyo where they use the sun a lot in their concept art. Like virtually, like if you look at the Splash Mountain one, there's like a gigantic sun just like over the concept art. So I don't know if there is some sort of relation to this particular park and the concepts and sun as well. That I'm still trying to figure out. But the Sun Valley is there. It could just be referring to, Colorado mining as well.
Interesting.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I couldn't read the one next to it. There is multiple crates that go to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, though.
Yeah.
So there are crates that say BTM to BTMRR.
Yeah. Do you want to walk us through this next part here?
Not really. There's the next part we go. There's like a sluice box that we go through. This actually channels into that sluice box that goes over top of the Pelton wheel. And then there's, I don't know, I consider this a little throwback to the trestle bridge. I don't know, because it's very trestle-y and it's very bridgy.
Every day
So,
I'm trestling.
Every day I'm trestling. Yeah.
I'm just singing that
and then you go
to myself. Just FYI. It's now a thing in my head forever and ever.
Because I mean, it's a good line. I mean, nobody will buy that shirt, but if you want to make that shirt for Distorians, I'm sure people will like it.
Nobody will buy it. Good times.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know I make a million things that nobody buys, so trust me, if there's anyone who knows about things that people don't buy, I know all about them. So now we go into, what do they actually call this building? Do they have a name for this building?
I haven't seen an actual name, but I'm guessing it's like all the other ones that we've seen. So I think that this is, from what I've seen, this looks very much like what Florida used to look like before they updated and added all of the extra stuff to it. It's very plain. There's only a few things here and there. It's definitely not packed full of little secrets like Florida version is, but there is some things in this area.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought was interesting is that there's a barrel with water next to the water fountain that says BTMRR Co. So Big Thunder Mountain Railroad Company, even though, again, we call this just Big Thunder Mountain as an attraction.
Maybe they imported their water from the U.S.
It's only the finest water from Florida. Sorry about that, guys. I have two things about the wrenches on the wall. Do you mind if I throw a wrench into this podcast?
Have at it.
Okay. So there's two gigantic, it's like, I don't know, wooden planks against the wall that they threw nails in that have, about 7 to 8 wrenches on each side. The top ones are adjustable monkey wrenches, and then the bottom ones are S wrenches. And you're like, who cares? Okay, well, rude. And second of all, let's talk about it. So the S wrench, according to the Smithsonian, are used to get to particularly difficult locations. And the most important difficult location would be ones on locomotives. So these were used for light repairs on steam locomotives, usually done in the roundhouses and at many small locomotive terminals throughout our railroad systems. So I think that's cool that they had, locomotive wrenches.
Yeah, that is cool.
Monkey wrenches. Let's talk about adjustable monkey wrenches, because who wouldn't want to?
So we talked about saws the other day. That was great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, I never knew about monkey wrenches and where they came around. Like, who would ever have thought?
I know, you just own one.
So this was patented in 1841, and they were advertised and sold in the United States as monkey wrenches, which were similar to English handle set coach wrenches, which came around from like the 1830s. So I did find the patent for monkey wrenches, and I, of course, had to look up the etymology of monkey wrenches. And the reason that they're called monkey wrenches
because so easy a monkey could do it.
That the side, I mean, sure. That's why they gave them to
it's easier than those words you said earlier. Sorry.
Right. So they call them monkey wrenches because it kind of looks like the side profile of a monkey's mouth. So they think it's like a monkey's head is kind of why they called them colloquially monkey wrenches, because they kind of look like a monkey. But I found the patent for the monkey wrench. Did you just put the robot up?
I did.
So this is ridiculous, dude. Oh, my God. All right. Loring Coes on April 16th, 1841, patent number 2054 for wrench. Let me just read this, because patents were wild, dude. Like, you would just, you could write whatever you wanted in this. So, the United States Patent Office, seriously, these things are ridiculous. Clearly there's no Grammarly or anything. The method of constructing screw wrenches. To whom it all may concern, be it known that I, Loring Coes of Springfield, of the county of Hampton in the state of Massachusetts, have invented a new and useful improvement in the self-adjusting hand wrenches used by mechanics for the turning and screwing up nuts and screws of different sizes, and that the following is full and exact description of the same. That's what they wrote, dude. Dude, this guy, this pompous monkey wrench inventor, just straight up got, be it known that I, Loring Coes.
That's what he does at like dinner parties. He's like, it's like, what do you do for a living? Wow.
To whom it all may concern. Oh, sit down, Coes. We already know about your wrench, all right? You've been adjusting us all the whole night. Leave us alone. But the screws and bolts need to go up and down, sir. Sit down. The gentleman from Massachusetts shall yield his time.
Somebody get a wrench to make him sit down.
I can't believe this ridiculousness. But yeah, it goes on. If you read that patent, you'll pee your pants laughing because it's just so silly. All of it is so
Oh my
silly.
gosh, that's ridiculous.
But anyway, yeah, there you go.
I never thought a wrench could be so entertaining. It says, forsooth the nuts shall yield to the bolts.
They need to, dude.
Oh my goodness. For those of you who don't know who I've been referring to, Elliot, that's my husband, Elliot, who's happened to be watching the show right now. So shout out to my husband. Okay. Have we done enough?
Combining the screw which operates the sliding jaw, of which is placed up on one side of the shank, upon which is said jaw moves in it, with the extremity of which hammer jaw is applied.
Wow.
Easy, dude. Loring. Enough. The advantages of my improved wrench so far as strength and convenience of parts are concerned.
Okay.
Over those in common use will be...
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry, dude. It was like a seance, dude. He empowered me.
Gosh. Anyway, what else we have
Shakespeare.
It's Shakespeare. If we're done with wrench talk, what else we got in here? Did you get any clear shots of the posters that are in this queue? Because I have
I tried desperately. Nothing. No one cares about anything.
I have one shot. It definitely says Pony Express and letters, and something down here
like
says
that's
farmland.
made by AI. Like that's like what the crappy AI stuff sits out is like weird blurry nonsense.
Yeah, it.
Farmland, maybe farmland below.
Farmland. I think it's farmland. I think it's Pony Express. Yeah. It looks to me like there's not a lot of necessarily inside jokes, but it's impossible to tell because I can't get a clear shot of any of this. So I just have to go to Tokyo.
I swore I would have thought, similarly to how we're obsessed with taking pictures of everything in queues, there's a lot of photos in our queues, and maybe it was because it was improved and changed, but I just thought there would have been something, especially for those posters, because it's the first thing. It's the first thing as soon as you walk into that big house is that you would assume that people would look at that as a focal point or as a storytelling element, and it is completely ignored.
It seems like, to me, the lot of the media coverage is so much less in Tokyo. There's just not as much out there. And that just could be a cultural thing. I know they have a lot of other rules and restrictions, too, for taking photos and video recording things. So I did also kind of see this at the unload. It says, this is the best picture I could get. It says cattle ranchers, and that's all I got. So to me, it seems like very much just old Western theming. Like, we're going to talk about the Pony Express. We're going to talk about farmland. We're going to talk about ranchers. We're going to just get you in the place. And I don't think it's terribly complicated. It just seems like scene setting is all it is, because if you think of the language barrier and whatnot, it makes sense to keep it as simple as possible. But if anybody is listening and lives over in Tokyo, we could use some pictures.
Dude, you know what? I'll ask my friend to see if he can get us pictures of the posters.
Anything else that we have in here? I did see some tack for a horse hanging up on a side. I didn't see. I saw a place where you could look out the window and see things. At the load area, I did find some shovels hanging up. Not very exciting. It's like,
I got excited. That was
shovels.
There's a couple tubular lanterns hanging all over the place. I know I was obsessed with them for a bit, so there's lots of them.
I think we all got a little obsessed with the lamps for a while, to be honest. I'm still a little obsessed. The only other thing is, if you look out from the queue, you can see a lot of the mining equipment. I think this is where a lot of these things that I saw in all of those blueprints that I was showing you, I think you can see them. You also can see them from the trains. So we might be able to go over them a little bit later, but you can peek out and see a lot of that mining equipment hanging out just outside the queue as well.
Wait, hang on, time out. Is that Berkey's crane?
Well, I thought so, but it doesn't go. There's no like L on the top. It's like upside down. Yeah, so I don't think that's it. Do you have anything else for the queue?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
There's not that. You know what? I was really disappointed. Nobody has the station. I couldn't find a single video of the station.
That's the only thing I got, was that shovels. Shovels were the station. That's what I got.
Yeah.
And that blurry picture of cattle ranching.
Everybody stops like by the wrenches, and then boom, they're on the ride.
I wonder if it's because they're not supposed to record on it. So, all right. Well, shall we wrap it up?
Pull this train into the station.
You only have a few more times of saying that before we're...
Dude, you know what's crazy? I feel like we've been doing this for like 20 episodes. This has been a long...
there.
Because we started way back at the origins.
15, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a short one.
We might hit 20 by the time we're done with Paris. So
yeah, this is short.
And I do think we are going to do a special episode for when we hit 100th, our 100th episode, correct?
Yes, we are.
So that is coming as well. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Distory. We hoped you enjoyed talking about wrenches and stamp mills and tractors and mining equipment. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
To all who may be concerned.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And we also appreciate all of you guys who have written in or sent us really sweet notes saying how much you're loving Distory. That means so much to us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I had like my first time in the parks, somebody recognized me not for content or live streaming, but specifically talked about Distory. And I was like, that's...
Like, people are listening to us.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. But no, we're glad you guys are out there. And next week we will tackle the rest of Tokyo Disneyland. But until then, we'll see you next time for Distory.
Thanks for hanging out.
See ya.
See ya,
Bye, guys.